This past weekend, my partner and I decided to go to our usual camping spot. This place is very quiet. There is usually nobody but one or two people on this mountain, and even they are a few miles away from our camp. Such seclusion has always created an air of mystery, as if secrets were kept here that would be better left undiscovered. We set up camp, ate and drank some beer around the fire. The silence around us seemed so dense that it felt as if a nail could have been hammered into it. There were none of the usual sounds of night nature this time, and there was something unnatural about it. We both felt a shiver begin to rise, as if some indefinable foreboding was beginning to encompass our souls. Night was approaching, and we decided to go to bed. My usually calm dog refused to settle down inside the tent. The weather was hot, so we left the tent uncovered, with a net instead of a zip to let fresh air in. The three of us lay in the tent, and I could hear the wind whispering something incomprehensible among the trees. It was at this moment, as if our dog had anticipated something terrible, that he jumped up abruptly and began howling for all the world to hear. This high-pitched howl pierced the night, making my partner and I wince. We immediately realized that something was wrong, that the dog, normally so calm, was seeing or sensing something terrible. We decided to go up and check out what the dog was interested in. We cautiously approached the edge of the camp, and then suddenly the dog growled so loudly that my heart raced. I looked in the direction she was pointing and saw only the darkness of the forest. But something in that darkness was wrong. For a moment it seemed like something moved in the darkness, something inhuman, elusive. When our nerves were at their limit, and we were about to return to the tent, there were quiet rustles around us. It was as if something was approaching, but we couldn't see anything in the darkness. My dog suddenly started growling and acting restless. We realized that something was wrong, that our peace had been disturbed by something frightening and inexplicable. Suddenly, out of the darkness of the night, a strange figure appeared. Its silhouette was vague, as if woven from nightmares. The figure's eyes shone with an ominous light, and it moved towards us. We felt fear gripping our bodies, robbing us of our ability to move. The figure was slowly approaching, and it emanated a cold energy that made our blood run cold. We realized that it was something inhuman, something that violated all the laws of nature. We looked at it like a nightmare from which we couldn't wake up. Suddenly, the dog roared so loudly that we could hardly contain a cry of horror. The figure stopped suddenly, and for a moment it seemed to disappear into the darkness. But then we realized that it had simply become invisible, lurking in the shadows, but not disappearing. We were left alone with something we could not explain or understand. Our hearts were beating so fast that they seemed about to jump out of our chests. Then the figure began to slowly approach again, and its outline became visible. We saw its face. It was a human face, but distorted by something sinister and incomprehensible. We realized that it was time to run away. We stood up silently, and without looking back, we ran away from this nightmarish vision. The sounds of the night seemed strange and distorted, as if they were mixed with the voices of those who had not returned from this place. We ran far away from the camp, and just when we felt that we were safe, our legs refused to obey, and we collapsed to the ground. We could not explain what had happened, what we had seen. That night remained in our memory forever. The night when we felt the breath of unknown horror upon us. The night when the boundaries between the world of the living and the world of the dead became blurred. And the night when we realized that there are some things that are better left as eternal mysteries. We decided to return to the site during the day to solve at least part of the mystery. But as we approached the camp, we found that everything around us had changed. The tent had been torn apart, the fire extinguished, and there was an atmosphere of ominous expectation all around. We entered the tent and found all our belongings scattered about, as if someone had been looking for something valuable. But the worst of it all was that there were footprints on the ground, as if someone or something had dragged something heavy deep into the forest. It was back in 1995 in a small town in the American state of Ohio. Summer was coming to an end, and my parents decided to send me to camp, hoping that it would help me to diversify my vacations. I, like many children at that time, thought that spending the summer with friends or at home was much more interesting than going to some obscure camp. My entreaties, by the way, had no effect, and eventually I was pushed onto a bus going to a mysterious camp. The bus ride was so tumultuous that even my initial anxiety began to be replaced by mirth. The laughter, the jokes, the fun, the sharing of stories all made me relax and even smile. My peers seemed just as excited and curious as I was. I listened to their stories about what they were looking forward to this week at camp and what adventures they wanted to go on. Several hours passed and finally we arrived at the campground. Huge trees surrounded us on all sides, and I couldn't help but notice the lack of a sign with the camp name on it. A bit mysterious, I thought. We were placed in cozy rooms, each of which looked like a real house. Although everything looked normal at first glance, there was a strange atmosphere in the air, as if the forest had its own secret. The first day passed quickly, and I decided to look around. After all, it was my first week at camp, and I wanted to assess what there was to do here. During this walk, I happened to see a girl. She was standing off to the side, keeping to the shade of the trees as if to hide from the gazes of the other kids. Her eyes attracted me. They were full of mystery and secrecy, as if she was keeping some big secret. But meetings with new friends distracted me from this mysterious girl, and I forgot about her, carried away by games and new acquaintances. At night, when everyone had already gone to bed, I suddenly woke up. A noise in the hallway brought me out of my sleep, and in the darkness, I saw the same girl quietly descending the stairs. Something urged me to follow her. My heart was pounding frantically, as if I was about to discover some great secret. I sprinted out of the room and silently followed her. I tried to speak to her, but she only turned her red eyes in my direction and disappeared into the darkness. A strange feeling came over me, as if I had entered a world of mystery and unknown events. That night she disappeared from my life, but not from my thoughts. Every day my attraction to the mysterious girl only grew stronger. Her image beckoned me, as if some invisible thread was pulling me to her. Our attempts to talk to her were unsuccessful, and she always disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only a sense of mystery. Eventually, my irrepressible curiosity overcame my doubts. One day she appeared before me again. She pointed to the forest and led me behind her. We walked in silence until we reached an old hut surrounded by trees. Inside, we were greeted by strange drawings on the walls and stains of red liquid on the floor. There was a kind of eerie atmosphere here, and I sensed that this was no ordinary hut. And in the midst of it all lay a photograph of me taken from the back, and my eyes in it seemed empty and distorted. My heart ached, and I felt something sinister surrounding me. The world around me began to spin, as if I was plunged into some kind of nightmare. It was at that moment, when I was standing in front of that creepy picture, that something incredible happened. There was a strange sound in the air, and figures in dark clothes appeared in the room. I tried to run away, but they were faster and stronger. The next moment, everything was plunged into darkness. I woke up tied to something. A fire was burning around me, and I could feel its scalding heat. Strangers in dark clothes were standing around me. They were saying strange words, creating an ominous atmosphere. I tried to scream, to beg, but they didn't hear me. Their words sounded like incantations, and I felt that something incredible was happening. But then something changed in me. Fear was replaced by rage, and I felt something powerful awaken in me. I struggled against the ropes, my arms free. The fire around me seemed to react to this and began to dissipate. I broke free and rushed to run without looking back. I ran like a beast, not noticing the pain until I fell, hurting my leg. At the end of that terrible night, I was saved. The police came to the scene and found the footprints. I told them everything that had happened, but I could not even realize what had happened that night. Over time, the terrible events began to fade into the background, but they did not disappear completely. Many years later, the nightmare returned to my dreams. I found myself in the same hut, in front of the door. A feeling of uneasiness seized me, but I decided to open the door, and I saw the girl who had brought me to that hut. And then it hit me, this girl is just a puppet in their hands. My neighbor had always been one of those incredibly persistent wannabe YouTube stars. Over the years, I had witnessed him perform various bizarre stunts, from the cinnamon challenge to lying flat on his car's hood as it slowly rolled down his driveway. He would enthusiastically shout phrases like epic win, epic fail, and even epic maintenance of the status quo, which left me bewildered. Frankly, I had grown tired of watching his antics in his quest for online fame. So, when he approached me recently, informing me that he was going away for a few weeks and asked if I could collect his mail, I felt an unexpected wave of relief. The prospect of not having to brace myself for its absurdity for a while was genuinely comforting. I had always feared that his reckless stunts might somehow spill over into my life. For the initial days, everything was pretty routine. I gathered his mail, which mostly consisted of bills, spam, and what appeared to be a birthday card. Then one evening, a sizable cardboard box arrived, conspicuously marked with a return to sender label in bold red letters. Handling the box turned out to be a challenge. It was surprisingly heavy, and I struggled to transport it from his porch to my place. As I attempted to carry it across the street, I quickly realized that I wouldn't be able to lug it up the stairs and into my house. So, I decided to temporarily place it in my garage. I rarely use the garage for parking my car, as its malfunctioning door required considerable effort to open. It seemed more convenient to park outside than to wrestle with a temperamental door multiple times a day. After a few forceful attempts, I finally managed to coerce the garage door open. I maneuvered the box inside, situating it in a corner, and promptly forgot about it. A couple of days went by without any notable events. Then things took an unexpected turn. A peculiar odor began to seep through the small gap under the door connecting the garage to my house. It was an unpleasant and oddly sweet scent, reminiscent of a skunk's spray. Initially, I assumed it was the result of roadkill or some similar occurrence, but the smell gradually intensified rather than dissipating. At that point, I realized I needed to trace the source of the odor. The moment I opened the garage door, the pungent smell hit me like a physical force, making me recoil and instinctively cover my nose. The origin of the smell was unmistakable. It was emanating from the cardboard box I had placed in the corner. At that moment, I likened it to perhaps a shipment of spoiled meat, considering the foul odor and the weight of the box could have contained an entire animal that had rotted over time. A bizarre thought, to say the least. I approached the box, equipped with scissors to cut through the tape sealing it shut. The bottom of the box had become damp and weak, which had prompted my decision to open it from the top. I didn't want to risk the box disintegrating and spilling its contents all over the floor. However, just as I was about to cut through the tape, the box slipped from my grip and fell to the ground with an audible crack. "Damn it," I muttered, concerned that I might have damaged something inside. After managing to open the stubborn garage door, I re-entered the garage, and there it was, the open box, seemingly inviting me to examine its contents. I braced myself, securing a clothespin over my nostrils to fend off the odor, holding a garbage bag in one hand, and clutching a potent cleaning solution in the other. Long rubber gloves provided a layer of protection between me and whatever was inside. However, as I took in the gruesome sight, I realized I wouldn't need any of those preparations. The box contained meat, that much was clear, but it wasn't from a cow or a pig. No, it was something far more unsettling. It was the body of my neighbor, lifeless, but still intact. In a state of shock, I contacted the authorities, leading to an intense period of questioning. It was only natural for them to be suspicious of the individual with a deceased body in his garage. Thankfully, after thorough investigation, they concluded that I had no involvement in the situation. Although my DNA was found all over the box and the pervasive stench had permeated my house, one crucial piece of evidence vindicated me: the vlogging camera. The police showed me footage from the camera, captured by my neighbor himself. He had filmed himself inside the box, declaring his intention to mail himself across state lines. Equipped with provisions like bottles for bodily functions, food, pillows, and flashlights, he excitedly documented his endeavor. With the help of a friend, he was sealed inside the box, presumably for transportation. The subsequent hours, or possibly days, were documented in brief snippets, featuring comments like, "I think I'm in a truck now, can feel the movement, and it's probably a warehouse, quite warm here. Still have plenty of food." The last entry showed the box toppling over, resulting in a fatal injury to his neck. The camera continued recording until either the memory was exhausted or the battery died. However, there was one detail that I chose not to reveal to the police after viewing the footage. In the moments following the fatal fall, I distinctly heard the unmistakable screech of my garage door opening.